So thank you, everyone. So next up, we have, as part of, in this room for the breakout sessions, we have Jamie Finn from the University of Edinburgh to talk to us about moving from on-premise to SaaS and future-ready timetabling systems. So over to you, Jamie.
Good. Greetings, everyone. So, just do a quick intro. So I'm Jamie Finn, Timetabling Program Manager at University of Edinburgh. And it's a good point to do this talk today, because as I was traveling down from Edinburgh, I was writing my closure report for the project, and the project's gone well, and it's now time to reflect what worked well for us, and hopefully highlight some learning points for others. All the big tasks are done, and we're now successfully switched over to the new event map timetabling system from July this year for 24-25 academic year. We published a teaching timetable on time and have got through the busy start of the academic year period. Key to the success has been some great support from our supplier. EventMap, who are based in Belfast, have got a great product. It's a new modern SaaS solution built on Microsoft Azure, and they've been a great partner to work with. And they also really understand HE because they're a spin out from Queen's University Belfast. So many of the team have worked and lived in HE. Clearly across the HE sector, there are similarities and differences. Different organizational structures and sizes, different people, different tensions between the schools, departments and the central services, and different suppliers. But hopefully some of these lessons are transferable. Though like all projects, sometimes luck and serendipity and timing plays its part, and that's harder to replicate. So my own background is I worked on the supplier side for Capita and InterSystems on local government projects and big NHS projects, and then worked at Edinburgh University for 16 years. First project was implementing SITS from Tribal, which has been mentioned a few times, student record system. Then I had the pleasure of implementing the first timetabling system at University of Edinburgh when we implemented Scientia about 12 years ago. Then I've worked on research, finance, and strategic reporting. And then I came back to do timetabling a second time, and I'm a keen runner, and often if you do a race a second time, you go a bit faster because you know how the lie of the land, and it's certainly definitely helped coming back. So I'll just go on. So at the start of the project, I was chatting to our CIO, and that echoed some of the words from the Durham University VC, and but our Chief Information Officer at Edinburgh, he said the two system implementation projects that he feared the most was replacing the payroll system and replacing the timetabling system. So there's no pressure then. And a bit more background about the payroll system at University of Edinburgh is that we replaced our HR, finance and payroll systems 2 years ago. And it needed to be done as a legacy systems. But it was very challenging and a huge program of work. Lots of good people working on that. But it was a very ambitious full service transformation. So everything changed at the same time. New business processes, new HR and finance organization, more centralization of finance operations, lots of changes to roles and job descriptions, and a brand new cloud Oracle ERP. So that covered all of HR, payroll, procurement, and finance. But the end result was really too much change all at once. A lot of the finance and procurement subject matter experts left the university, and we were left with some people who didn't understand all the detail. And the new Oracle system was officially branded as People and Money by the Central Finance Service. And it got locally renamed by staff in schools as Pain and Misery. And that probably says enough. So for our timetabling project, which followed straight on after that, we were the first big project which then got approved. So there was quite a lot of skepticism in schools and extra scrutiny from the centre. So we had to be sensitive to that. But in a way, it was a lucky break because it allowed us to focus the project really on the minimum change, tech lift and shift, and we could sell it to the senior leadership team as a way of reducing the risk of disrupting a critical service. So there is lots of talk across the sector about doing huge digital transformation, but we've got to look after our staff and students and the services. And if we break the services, then that's a lot of pain for everybody. And our project has successfully managed the scope to lay down clear markers during the system implementation, but we wanted no big unnecessary business process changes, no changes to the organisation or the timetabling policy. So we wanted to protect the students and staff out in schools from the change, and that set us up for success. The other starting point was a very strong central timetabling service, respected by schools, and we'd already done the business process change. And that was really key because we then managed to get 2 of the subject matter experts from the timetabling service embedded in a project team, and I reckon anybody else going down that route, that's essential. So I think the first tip, if you're embarking on a critical system change, assess the strength of your existing service. Is it ready to support a major system implementation? And then assess your project team resources. It's really a question is how much change by when? What's the max capacity of the organisation, schools, departments and central support groups to absorb the change? And then you can design your project around that. So I'll run you through our process. So we'll take you through procurement, implementation and the live service. Business case drivers, in our case, we'd come to the end of a 10-year contract. We were running end-of-life legacy on-premises technology. There was service vulnerability because our previous supplier, Scientia, went into administration and had been acquired by Technology One, and that threw up lots of questions. And it was a good time to go to market because this is the best time where there's been more new suppliers into the timetabling market and there's a lot of innovation. Our message to our customer base was that we were going to do it faster, easier, better, so focus on scalability because our legacy system would fall over at certain points through the year because we had too many students and too many events on the legacy timetabling system, and we wanted to improve integration. So we moved to the cloud, and that was part of the strategy, so we made that a mandatory procurement requirement, and that eliminated some suppliers who weren't fully on the cloud. And we aligned with our digital strategy, which was cloud first, and also a push to consolidate the number of suppliers we were dealing with. So we wanted to move to one supplier for both teaching, timetabling, and exams. We previously had that with Scientia, but they had different products, and we had multiple data feeds. So as part of procurement, we also said there had to be a single database underlying both the teaching and the exams applications, and a move to standard API infrastructure, where we enforced all the API calls had to go through our WSO2 Choreo API gateway, which is aligned with our enterprise architecture. I had to redact some of our sensitive information on our digital estates roadmap, but I think there'll probably be no surprises that one of our real end-of-life applications is our SITS tribal student record system. And like many other colleagues I've talked to here, we've built lots of stuff on top of that. And I think we find now that a lot of our legacy systems are the large ones which are difficult to replace. But the plan with Digital Estates was to look at all the applications and make an investment plan, work out where they were in the life cycle. And previously, a timetabling system, like our student record system, had been marked as end of life and a big vulnerability. So that helped us with getting the funding for the project. There's also a timing with other stuff across the university, in that there's a big push for curriculum transformation at the university, but we're very keen to replace our timetabling system first because we felt that would give us the best platform and future flexibility to deal with curriculum transformation. And it's a bit of a challenge now with curriculum transformation coming along and looking at some of our end-of-life student record systems, because how is the two going to play out? But you might not all have worked in the timetabling area, but across the university then timetabling is critical, underpinning the learning and teaching, and it touches many other areas, including workload planning. Procurement, I'll quickly run through our journey. So as ever, it takes a while to get the funding in place. So our business case development started July 2021 as we were coming out of lockdowns and COVID. We got funding approved May 22 and went straight into a tender, open procurement, awarded the contract to EventMap, who's quite a new supplier in the space, December 22, straight into contract negotiations. They were relatively straightforward, and the supplier was very flexible and adopted our terms and conditions, which accelerated the process. And then we had a fast-track implementation of exams with only 3 months after we signed the contract, because we had a specific issue of our legacy system where there was a high risk for failing to schedule the exam and publish the exam timetable on time. So we prioritized exams, and then, but we needed a full 12 months to do the teaching implementation, and that timing worked well for us to launch the new EventMap timetable and booker system in March 2024 at the start of the academic planning cycle, so we could build the new timetable on the new system and run off effectively the old bookings and the old 23-24 timetable on the old system. And that was the best point to cut over. Like many systems we've talked about today, it's very hard to do a mid-academic year cutover for student record system, finance, for timetabling. And then we built the new timetable on the new system and then fully switched over at the start of 24-25. And the biggest challenge in all this time is really the integration. So the supplier, we found, particularly the cloud suppliers, they can spin up a new environment very quickly, but it's have we got enough resource to build the integration? Procurement is clearly very essential because the success and failure of the project relies on getting the best supplier to work with you and getting good relationship. We maximize the chance of getting the best fit on the functional requirements by weighting the quality of all functional requirements 80% and reducing the weighting for the cost, because really the cost of implementation is much higher than often the actual outgoing to the supplier. And the other key thing for ours, because we were looking for a joint solution for exams and teaching, we gave equal weighting to the functional requirements to both exams and teaching. And you might think that's a bit odd because exams is a smaller area and teaching is much larger, but essentially, exams was critical service. So we had to get a service which worked effectively for that. And for University of Edinburgh, there's a big challenge at the moment, scheduling exams where there's so many additional requirements and special sittings for exams. So over the years, it's become a much more complex area. Why did we choose EventMap? They scored the highest on the weighting scoring evaluation across quality and price. They met our functional requirements, importantly, both teaching and exams. They're also, of all the suppliers, they scored the highest on technical requirements because they have a full set of API endpoints, and it's a new modern tech stack on Microsoft Azure. And also we could confident we could be a partner in terms, they are quite a small spin out from University of Queen's Belfast, but they've now, they're a sort of mid-sized software company with about 40 employees, and the majority of their scheduling is in HE, but they also have got customers like the MOD and do a lot of work on room booking across the NHS. Going on to implementation, got the classic triangle of scope, timeline, and resource. But the key sort of learning message we had speaking to other suppliers is, and customers was we needed at least 12 months for that full implementation. As I said, the focus was on minimizing the amount of change, so it was narrowly focused on lift and shift of the system tech change. We tried, where possible, not to change lots of the data and re-engineer the data, and that's helped us when we were building integrations. But we pushed back on policy change. We also pushed back on some scope because there is a push across the university to standardize on a university-wide desk booking solution, and we did some trial within that, but we kept a scope that we were only going to replace the existing room booking, desk booking, which was already on the legacy timetabling system, and then we would deal with additional improvements and a wider scope of project once we were onto that stable new platform. To deal with the enormous amount of work for the project team, we had to phase that. And it worked for us doing exams first because we could go ahead with less integration work, because typically exams teams only want a snapshot of the exam data before each exam diet. So we built that using a Talend ETL tool, which we could do very quickly. And then for the that then gave us a longer lead time to build the incoming and outgoing integrations for the teaching timetabling system, where there was much more integration. Let's step through here. And what we were implementing was effectively 3 web applications on a single database platform, the Optime platform from EventMap. So we had the exam application, Timetabler for doing all the scheduling and publishing timetables, and Booker, which is their product for doing room booking and desk booking, and was originally developed with the University of Cambridge and University of East Anglia, who were talking earlier, also an EventMap customer for timetabling. So looking at integration, which was a big piece of the work for the University of Edinburgh team, there's been talk about Agile. We split the work into effectively 7 work packages. So we had monthly cycles of sprint work with a supplier, and it was really helpful that we had the supplier on site 2 days a week, 2 days every month for plenary sort of workshops across the program. So we had a kind of monthly cycle with the supplier, but then for our integration work, we were working on sort of 2-week sprints with multiple work packages for the incoming integration and outgoing integration. And that all fitted across the sort of enterprise architecture vision of consolidating through the API gateway, which we use as Choreo from WSO2, and I think that would be equivalent to other products like MuleSoft. So University of Edinburgh, highly integrated environment. We had to rebuild the integration from our student record system, SITS, and from our identity management system to bring it into the cloud EventMap solution. And also we then had to build outgoing integrations to Blackboard or VLE, where we push out student enrollments on subgroups, which are golden copy in the timetabling system. We push about 5 million student calendar entries for teaching events out to their Microsoft 365 calendar, and that underpins our personalized timetable for students. We push data to digital signage to our Echo 360 lecture recording service, and we've also have a customized course timetable browser application, which is really a University of Edinburgh class checking tool, which is used by students and staff. And we stayed with a bespoke solution for that because we wanted it to be unauthenticated so that prospective students can also browse that, and it gives them valuable information so they can imagine what their future timetable would be. With the EventMap solutions, all of their applications are authenticated, so that was why we kept with our custom solution. In terms of scope, we did push back on quite a lot of scope, but we had a couple of end-of-life applications we were integrating to, and during the project we had to take them into scope because they were legacy PHP applications which we wanted to move to the Python web framework. So that was added to the project. What did it take us to deliver this? We scaled up eventually to 12 FT in the project team, so small compared to the large finance ERP, where we probably had a team of over 100 working on our HR and finance. But we had enough resource, and we balanced it with 10 permanent members of staff, 2 contractors, a developer and BA, but importantly, we had 2 of our subject matter experts from the timetabling operations team. We also had within that the business lead, Scott Rosey, who previously came from St Andrews University and now head of timetabling at Edinburgh. He's worked on timetabling systems for over 30 years, so we had lots of experience. And in fact, I worked with Scott 12 years ago when we rolled out Scienter, so it was like getting the team back together, but it definitely helped with relationships when we had worked together previously. As I said, we're fortunate and we've got a mature, centralized timetable team in Edinburgh. Previously, before 2016, there was a lot of devolved timetabling. They were using our timetabling tools, but out in the schools. From 2016 onwards, it was brought into the centre because we felt we needed dedicated people who were doing timetabling 100% of their time rather than only 5 or 10% of their time and scattered across the schools. And it means that the timetabling examinations team has got an FTE of 25 people running that central timetabling service. So effectively we had a BAU team of 25 who run the timetabling service, including data modeling and space planning, and then a project team of 12. One of the key decisions we made during that process was we struggled at the point of getting enough resource from the BAU team to support UAT. So we made a key decision to use some contingency funding to bring 3 FTE into this team on a temporary basis. And that was effectively 1 FTE added to the 3 core teams. And that was a risk mitigation to avoid the prospect of the timetable being delivered late. And it was really essential we did that because the implementation went pretty smoothly, but there were other business as usual issues to do with rack and concrete, and 5 big lecture theatres were unavailable at the key scheduling point. And if we hadn't added the extra resource in there, then the combination of changing the systems plus dealing with a business as usual resourcing challenge would have been, critical for the service. So I think one tip is to make sure that you throw enough resource into the operational team to give them a chance of success. And I've worked in plenty of projects where there's not been enough resource in the operational team, and you end up breaking people in the operational team. And there's a kind of, I think, a moral obligation of us as project people to look after people in operational teams. That gives you an indication of the size of the project. And so University of Edinburgh, relatively large, Russell University with over 35,000 taught students. The system is holding up to the volume of bookings we're taking. So over the first few months of start of semester 1, we've taken 138,000 room bookings, 22,000 desk bookings. We did have some implementation challenges. We addressed that by bringing forward the exams work, prioritising that. As I said, using contingency funding, bring in some additional resource, but also making sure that we had the 12 months of long lead time. This is the product now. This is our Booker product, which integrates maps so you can find the available booking space for rooms and desk study space. And this is the Timetabler application. It's a new modern user interface liked by the users. So the outcome has been a big success. We've securely moved from a legacy system which had a lot of vulnerability to a new modern system. We've published the exam timetables on time. We've published the teaching timetable on time. We had a relatively low level of number of support calls because the new applications are easy to use. And the cloud system has met all our performance, availability, and scalability targets. And importantly, the push to Microsoft 365 is about 40 times faster than our legacy system, so we can now publish all the teaching events for the whole year, semesters 1 and 2 together, whereas previously we had to stagger the publishing. Just watch for time. I've mentioned some of the benefits for students already, that push to Microsoft 365. For staff, we can now also publish their calendars, teaching commitments to Microsoft 365. Across the timetable operations team, they've had quite a lot of efficiency savings. A lot of the operations are quicker and simpler to do. Post-go live issues, mostly they've been on the University of Edinburgh side to do with integrations. But the scale of those issues haven't really been any bigger than typical start of semester 1 issues. Some of the key success factors: having that strong, mature, centralized service before we started, and having an experienced project team who understand the business area and have got good relations. I think that helped. And really, we had very few sort of people conflicts within that process. So we had good comms to our school contacts and department contacts and the project board. And then now we've done that big platform change, now we can look ahead and do some of the business process improvements. But it's been quite important we split these business process improvements out from the initial process of getting onto the new platform. So I'll probably pause there, and that's us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jamie. And another keen runner, which is good to see as well. So, talking of timetable, it's almost bang on time. So we do have a minute if anyone's got a quick question. So I do have one. You mentioned some of the key decisions were around resourcing, for example. I wonder if you've got any other key lessons learned on this kind of project. I mean, one thing that jumped out at me actually applies to any project was designing your project to fit your capacity for change. I wonder if you've got any other top tips or lessons learned.
Yeah, I think it was key getting that, not overreaching and being realistic of what we could achieve. I think we also had to make some compromises in how, whether we could go all the way to the full API enterprise architecture goal. So we had to deliver some interim integrations, which we did back to our student record system because we were waiting for the SITS student record team to produce some new API endpoints. But it was on the critical path and there was too much risk about that piece of work. So being pragmatic about the main thing was to get onto the new platform. If we had to run with some interim integrations for 6 months, a year, that was okay to get the big win onto the new system and be able to decommission the legacy on premises.
Well, we're going through a process of moving our exam timetable into cloud, so and we're going through that exact same challenge. So if only this had come 6 months earlier, we might have been in a better position. Excellent. Thank you, Jamie.